Don't disagree with your teenager at least once a day, you're not a very good parent. One of the things parents mess up on all the time is they don't read their kids' nonverbals.
Yeah, because two angry people
Yeah.
causes more anger.
Oh,
So,
sure it does.
as you said, I like be the adult. Learn to walk away and say, you know
Oh,
what,
yeah.
you're angry
Yeah.
right now. We'll talk about this later, because escalation just leads to more
Oh,
escalation,
sure.
right? And
Because, if you share your feelings with them, you're increasing the chances that they will share their feelings with you. As a people, we don't talk about feelings very much. We just don't. I don't. We're just not. We don't talk about it. And it's even harder to talk about feelings when you're 45 and your kid is 16.
welcome to the Just Separated podcast. Hi, I'm Karen Oman, a thanatologist, grief counselor, divorce strategist, and co-author of the Just Separated workbook. I draw on years of personal and professional experience to guide you through the challenges of your divorce. Together, with our expert guests, we'll equip you with the clarity, resilience, and tools to take charge and move forward with confidence. Follow Just Separated and join us as we explore the many different facets of divorce. Welcome to the Just Separated podcast. My name is Karen Oman, co-host of Divorce Workshop, and today we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts when communicating with your children and divorce with our expert guest, Dr. John Berrens. Dr. John Berrens is a recently retired PhD-level school psychologist and a certified school counselor who spent the majority of his 40 years working as a school counselor in the school counselor office with junior and middle school students. Based upon years of working with young people in groups or individually, John wrote My Name Is, which consists of 7 short stories inspired by teens from divorce, separated, or single-parent families. Over the years, numerous students have expressed loneliness, feelings that they were the only ones who had experienced this type of family trauma, feelings that no one paid attention to what they were experiences as a result of their family situation. Welcome, Dr. Berrens, to the Just Separated podcast.
Glad to be here.
So from your experience, since we're talking about communications, do's and don'ts, which we already know that for a lot of parenting, co-parenting becomes a big adjustment. But what are some of the don'ts that you see that we can fix for co-parenting?
Okay. Well, I think, first of all, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the middle school through high school age kids, although they certainly apply to the youngsters, the younger kids also. But I think parents really have to take into consideration the developmental tendencies of youngsters who are 6th grade through high school. Because when you think about that age, you have to talk to them and interact with them somewhat differently than you do your 4 or 5 or 8 or 9-year-old. Because just think about high school, or even, and it kind of starts, some kids, this kind of stuff kind of starts in 6th, 7th grade. Sometimes it's a little bit later. Occasionally it's a little bit earlier, but we'll kind of use 6th, 7th grade as kind of the launching pad, so to speak. And, when you think about that age group of kids, they're kids who are just trying to figure out where they fit. And thus they're going to argue, they're the ones that are testing the waters. And when they test the waters with their parents, it's a potential for a battle. It's a potential for a war. And how you communicate through those difficult times will play a role in your relationship with them, whether you're going to be successful in coming up with some sorts of solutions to issues or whatever. Somebody once mentioned to me, they said, if you don't disagree with your teenager at least once a day, you're not a very good parent, which is probably somewhat accurate. But, that doesn't mean that the disagreements have to be nasty and out of control and cause major battles within the family. And again, the way you handle those confrontations might be too strong a word, disagreements, the way you handle those things can play a pretty big role in peaceful solutions that everybody can deal with. Now, in saying that, you also have to remember that as parents, you're in charge. I mean, you have the right to say what does and doesn't happen in your family. And there are some things which family A might think is important and family B might think is silly, and vice versa. So, that can cause problems, but you have to be realistic and you have to pick your battles very carefully. Now, first of all, I think one of the things parents mess up on all the time is they don't read their kids' nonverbals. And it's not just kids, but it's everybody. I mean, how often have you sat home and somebody comes in, or in the office and somebody comes in and you know right away, whoops, I'm not going to say this or that today. I can read their mood when they're walking through the door. Well, kids are no different. And I think parents, in terms of adults, don't, if you see they're in a foul mood when they walk in from school or from a sports practice or over at their friend's house, and you can just tell something isn't right, maybe that's not the time to confront them about the fact that they didn't clean their room. Or they did something which is not a big deal, but it's something maybe they broke the routine, or they've done something which kind of gets under your skin. So you have to be able to read their mood a little bit. It's not hard. And not only the mood in terms of what they're showing physically, but listen to their voice. I mean, you can tell if somebody, and I'm kind of focusing on the negative here, but you can tell the exact same when they're in a great mood, when something's great happened at school or at the sporting event or over their friend's house or something they did over the weekend, and celebrate those things too. But again, that's reading their voice, their body posture, their what how they're handling and holding themselves when they come in. So it's not exactly a do or don't. It's you want to do. The do is, well, you be aware, watch and see what it is they're doing. What are they telling you? And it's okay to try to, rather than, again, I'll say this probably several times today. Okay, so let's say they come in and you kind of detect it's a lousy mood going on. Don't play 90 questions with them, because they probably don't want to talk to you. They probably are not going to tell you what's wrong. Some kids will, and you have to, again, your own individual child. But it's better just to try to label the feeling of what's going on, rather than saying, "Boy, you don't look like you're very happy today," or "Did you just break up with your girlfriend," or whatever it is. Did you get a lousy grade? Because one of the things when we ask too many questions is we force kids, and it's not kids, adults is the same way. We force them into a corner, because when you ask a question, you want an answer. Man, I don't want to give you an answer. Maybe they don't even know the answer. Maybe they're just in a crummy mood because, maybe they were at the lunch table and somebody said something to them. And not to pick on girls, but, 7th grade girls, somebody says something wrong to them at the lunch table, it can ruin the rest of their day. And they can bring that ruined day home. So sometimes what I would suggest trying to label the feeling. "Oh, you don't look very happy today." The tone of your voice, make it more like a statement than a question. Don't expect a response, because they probably won't. But what you're doing there is you're communicating to them that you're trying to identify with what they're feeling. You're sensitive to what they're feeling, but you're not forcing them to go through the litany of what happened, whether it was at school or at sports or whatever it was, running around with the girls at the mall, something bad happened, or they perceived as being bad. So not a good day. Rather than, "Did you have a bad day today? Something happened with you and Susie today?" Or, "That teacher picking on you again?" "Gym class, was that embarrassing?" Whatever it is. Phrase it as a statement, recognizing the feeling. If you think the one thing some parents, "Well, I don't know what they're feeling." That's okay. Give it a shot. They'll tell you if they want to, if you got it wrong. I keep going back to, and I've said this once, I've said it 100 times over the years. When I was an undergrad at Thomas More College over in Kentucky, there was this counseling course that I took, which was taught by a licensed psychologist that ran one of the mental health units in northern Kentucky, right across the river from Cincinnati, that is. And I happened to be placed in a Catholic high school. I would go there a couple hours a week, and I had a couple kids that I was seeing, and I know what the heck I was doing at that point in life. But the guy who ran the class, Doc, he said, "Just give it a shot. Say what you're thinking they're feeling. If you get it wrong, they'll tell you." He says, "If they're really having a bad day, you're probably not going to make it any worse than it is." So don't worry about upsetting them, because they're already upset. Now, again, the flip side of that coin is don't just say those things when something bad's going on, when you see them coming in a lousy mood. Too often we forget to compliment our kids, or even compliments, maybe not the only word, maybe sharing with their joy or excitement about, hey, you had a good game today, eh? Sharing the fun when you see they're in a good mood. Because again, thinking back to teenagers tend to think that we're picking on them as adults, and the less it seems like we're picking on them, and the more we can kind of share their joy or their excitement or whatever it is they're doing, that's a good thing. And if you can share more of their joy and excitement with them, you're probably increasing the probability that they will share things with you when they're not having such a good time, when something is bugging them or they got screwed at something at school. I mean, the kids, everything isn't perfect. They might have gotten legitimate. They might have a very legitimate reason for being angry or mad or sad or scared or whatever it is they're feeling. So recognize it. But they're more like if you've got a good relationship with them and you pat them on the back for the good things that they deserve to be patted on the back for, or you're just curious about the good things and you show interest in the things that they're excited about, you're increasing the probability that they'll share some of the things which they're not so likely to. And again, I think there's differences between boys and girls. Boys don't talk as much. They keep it inside. I mean, I can tell you from when I ran divorce groups. Girls did most of the talking, way more than the boys for the most part over the years. And when I would run a group, and let's just say, for example, I would have 10 kids in the group, I'd have 8 girls and 2 guys. And sometimes it was 10 girls and no guys. They talk more, they share their emotions more. So, don't be surprised if Joe doesn't want to tell you anything, but his sister Sue will. Because a little bit of that is it's just the differences between boys and girls, teenage boys and girls. Another do and don't, and I think you have to be really. This is tough, and it's, how do I say it? It's we treat kids when they're teenagers like little kids some days and like adults the next, and sometimes it's in the way we communicate with them. We get mad at them because of some little silly thing they did, and then we expect them to do something very responsible the next day. And they feel torn sometimes between, okay, mom and dad, am I an adult or am I a kid? They won't say that. They might not even recognize it in their heads, but that can be what they're going through, and thus they don't know how to deal with you. Mom, yesterday we had this great time. We did this thing together, and now you're yelling at me for something, or you won't let me do this thing that all my friends are allowed to do. Because now we want to treat them like a little kid again. And kids tell me that all the time. I can't. And I can tell you myself, having experienced that a little bit as a teenager, because I was 6'2" going into high school, skinny as a rail, but I was 6'2". And I'm convinced, especially because I was almost that height in 8th grade, I'm convinced that I had some other responsibilities set upon me at times because I looked more mature than most of my peers. I mean, I was shaving sophomore year, and so some people just equated that with being a bit more mature. Was I more mature? Heck no. and then they knew that at times. So other times, I was treated like a little kid again. And so I was sometimes torn between, okay, what am I? Am I the 6'2" freshman that you can trust with responsibility, or am I the more typical 6'2" freshman that's kind of a jerk sometimes, does stupid, typical teenage things?
Now, can I ask you though,
yeah, go ahead.
Does that get amplified because of divorce? Where
well, I think I think it can. It has the potential to, because often the oldest, and I've talked to lots of kids that brought this up. They're given more responsibilities. Mm. And one of the typical ones is childcare. I'm the freshman in high school, and I've got, and I'm just picking that age out of the sky, but I'm the freshman, I'm the oldest one, and I've got a little brother that's 4 and another little sister that's 7. And, prior to mom and dad splitting up, I didn't have to babysit them very often. I didn't have to do this, that, or whatever. Or maybe, and again, I've heard this from kids. I never did laundry before. Now Dad's asking me to do laundry, and I'm doing it, but why? I don't want to do it. It was easier when somebody else in the family did it. Yeah, I think that sometimes kids get more responsibilities put on them. And again, we'll go back to the communication thing. Is it Joey? Look, I need more help. You got to start doing the laundry with me, or help out around the house. Or Susie, you've got to watch your younger sister every Friday night because I've got this other thing on. Even though you're a freshman and that's when the football games are and the basketball games are, you just can't go to all of them anymore. When you think about, are you going to tell them that? Or are you going to sit down and talk to them and say, okay, how can we work out something that works here? It's a negotiation, but it's not a negotiation. I mean, you're still the parent. You still have the rights to ask certain things. But I'll tell you, it comes across a whole lot better when you say, hey, we got this problem. Our laundry isn't getting done anymore. You're living with me now, and I'm working full time, and I didn't, let's do more of the typical situation. Mom was home with the kids, and now she's working full time. Or maybe she was working part time, and now she's working full time. I just don't have the time to do all this. I need some help with this. You can demand it, or you can sit down and you can talk about how can we handle this. Can you help me figure out how to deal with this problem? Ownership. You'll get way more done when somebody owns the issue and is brought into coming up with a solution. And again, that's communication. How you do it. Do we talk about this, or do we demand it and tell them how it's going to happen?
So you said that we have to be mindful of our tone.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that goes to everybody.
Certainly.
Right? And we all make mistakes. So we can repair. I'm sure you're going to talk about repairing. So we have to watch for tone. We have to watch for their behavior. And again, definitely for children and for everybody. I want to ask if those behaviors and that tone and like how they behave, is that also going to be more challenging when they're going through, the divorce as the children? Like the children feel more.
Very likely. It doesn't surprise you at all. Sure. Because when a divorce occurs, you've upset their apple cart also. They've got to adapt. And well, who knows what the situation is. I mean, I've had kids. Let me just give you for an example. I've had kids who have complained. Quite a few kids over the years complained that, I am the rope in the tug of war between my parents. They don't like it, and they get angry, and so then you get the tone, then you get the attitude. Well, maybe they are ticked off. Maybe they are frustrated because mom's pulling this way and dad's pulling this way, or the other one is, which kind of goes along with being the rope in the tug of war, is the mailman. We all talked about you're the mailman. I will tell your mom this, tell your dad this, and then you're gonna have some backlash. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the mailman between two people that aren't getting along anymore. So then when you have the backlash, sometimes you see the revolt, sometimes you see more behaviors, which we never saw that before. What's wrong with him or her? Well, maybe him or her isn't a happy camper right now. Maybe him or her is trying to find something to latch onto. So it's sometimes kids will maybe purposely, I don't know the word I want to use, but they'll latch on to kids who they know mom and dad would not approve of as their friends. And that's just that can be a little bit of a rebellious act on their part. Do things which they knew they never would have done before, but now they're doing it because they're just angry and they want to do something. They want to feel important. Maybe these other kids make them feel important. Who knows what it is. I guess there's a gazillion reasons as to why kids do that. But you see behavior changes. And then, the problem with that is, and then mom or dad react, and then you get this battle going on again. And one of the things I think mom and dads have to really realize, also not realize, but remember, is that just because your son or daughter comes home and you have to confront them about something, and you're trying to have a conversation, and they get all emotional and yell and scream at you, maybe cuss at you, they've never cussed at you before. Okay, just because they do it doesn't mean you have to do it. Good
point.
Cool your jets. Let them get it out. Doesn't mean that sometimes there might not need to be a consequence depending on what happened. but don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Because, I don't know, think back at your own lives, your listeners, in terms of things that started small and got crazy. Whether it was with your spouse, your best friends, your kids, your teacher, your minister, whomever it might have been. Something that might have started off real small, a disagreement, or just even a discussion about something, which turned into a disagreement, which then turned into a battle, which maybe then turned into a war. And sometimes I want to say, be the adult. They're teenagers, they're emotional, they yell and scream, they're probably experimenting with language, which now at age 16 they're using, which they never would have considered using when they were 10 or 12. Don't be blown off if they hit you with the F-bomb in an argument. Okay, guess what they're hearing at school all the time? I'm not saying I approve of it, but don't go crazy with it. Accept it. Accept the fact that it happened. Don't accept the fact that it happened, and then deal with it later. Or if you can deal with it then, okay, deal with it then. In terms of, okay, well, I really don't. You being calm will go a long way in making things work better for you in the long run.
Yeah, because two angry people
yeah
causes more anger. So
sure does.
As you said, I like be the adult. Learn to walk away and say, what, you're angry right now. We'll talk about this later, because escalation just leads to more escalation, sure. Right? And
what this might sound kind of silly to you, but I've told parents in the past, when you're ready to blow and you think you can't take anymore, go to the bathroom, shut the door. If you need to sit in there for 15 minutes, sit in there for 15 minutes. Nobody's going to bug you in there. Flip the latch so they can't come in. Even if they want to stand outside the door screaming, tell them you got to go to the bathroom even if you don't. It's a nice little place to go and allow things to simmer down a little bit.
And the thing is, it's a really good a tip, because when you're going through that acute part of that divorce process, that you can be pretty heightened emotionally yourself.
Certainly.
Right? And so it's best that you remember that and try very hard not to take your frustration, if your kid comes home frustrated or angry, to not take your frustration back out on the children, right? Because that's where a lot of bad friction happens.
Yeah. And, you mentioned, you're kind of wound up or having issues because of the divorce stuff that's going on, or separation, whatever. Talk with them about it. And when you talk with them about it, it's really, really important that you don't beat up your spouse or former spouse. I mean, you want to get your kids mad at you, because even though I'm just going to throw an example here. Let's say kids are living with dad most of the time. Let's say it's shared custody. They go back and forth on however that's set up, and the kids really like mom a little bit more than maybe they do dad. Maybe they just get along better with mom than they do dad. And mom and dad are still having issues with each other. Don't bad talk mom in front of the kids. If you have your issues with mom, deal with mom. Don't make your kids your confidant or your counselor if you're mad at the other spouse, whether it's the mom or the dad who's ever doing it. You want to get them angry at you? That'll do it. You want to get them to really dislike you? That'll do it. That'll bring them back to the parent who maybe they prefer to hang out with a little more. Maybe it's more comfortable at one parent's house than it is the other, for whatever reason, and they really aren't crazy about seeing the other parent as much. Don't badmouth. That kind of gets back to that post office game, or the tug of war game. That's all part of that, kind of all wrapped up together, and how that works with the youngsters. But again, talking calmly, keeping your own cool, put a check on your own emotions. And that's what I use the bathroom thing. Sometimes you just need to do this. Sometimes parents need to think, okay, what happened? And sometimes parents, another thing which another do sometimes for some parents, this won't work for all, but some parents, after you have that, and maybe a legitimate concern with your kid that maybe got out of control, maybe afterwards, after you calm down, you need to sit down and pull out a piece of paper and say, what went right and what went wrong? Maybe Draw a line down the middle, the rights and the wrongs. What was I trying to accomplish? What did we accomplish? And sometimes in doing that, if you are honest, you have to be honest, you might find out that maybe you're a big part of the problem. Maybe you didn't handle this so well. How would I handle this next time? Because they're teenagers. There's going to be a next time. It might be tomorrow. What can I do? What could I have done differently? Rather than just going to the kitchen and opening another bottle of wine and getting another glass, because I'm so angry right now. I just need a glass of wine. Take a little. Don't do it right away. Take a little time, settle down. It's kind of processing what the battle is. Not with your kid, with yourself. Again, you're the adult.
I love that though, because it's learning to take responsibility.
Oh yeah.
Right, because we are not. There's no perfect parent.
No.
So we all may have made mistakes, and especially when you're going through divorce with children, you do make mistakes. And I want to bring up what your thoughts about repairing.
Define repairing for me.
So you got angry and you yelled or you said something toward your child, and then your child and you. So you just have one of those things where you didn't go to the bathroom and lock yourself in the door. You went at it and you shouldn't have. You both were hypervigilant and you're upset, and you sit and reflect and you go, oh dear. And you write your thing where you did, you write the exercise, go, oh boy, that was really uncalled for a bit. I think I should repair. I should go talk to my child and say, you know what, mommy, dad didn't mean to say that. And I'm stressed. Something like that.
I think the big thing is honesty. Have that conversation with them when the waters have cooled, when the time seems right, but be honest. And there's and part of that honesty, not only in terms of I shouldn't have said this or I shouldn't have did that or that statement was uncalled for by me. If the divorce is part of the reason you're in that mood, it's nothing wrong. Again, without beating up your spouse, but this is really hard. Dad and I split up. We were together for 2 years or 10 years or 25 years or whatever it might be. I didn't used to have. I only worked part time. Or now we live in this apartment. We used to live in this nice house. Or I hate the fact that we can't do the things we used to do because there's less money, or whatever the case may be. Be honest with them. And again, calmly. And I know nothing wrong with saying, I know you don't quite get this, but I'm going through a lot of stuff too, and we got to work through this together. And it ain't easy. And be honest, we're probably going to have more fights down the road. We're going to have more arguments, but let's just try to be cool about it. Not cool, but let's try to keep our cool. That's the word I should have used. And just sit down and try to talk honestly with them about what you're feeling. Because if you share your feelings with them, you're increasing the chances that they will share their feelings with you.
I love that.
We don't, as a people, we don't talk about feelings very much. We just don't. I don't. We're just not. We don't talk about, and it's even harder to talk about feelings when you're 45 and your kid is 16. We're on different planes. We got different interests. We're coming at life from a different perspective. But a statement which I used to use when I used to run some of these parenting courses years ago, and it was, I feel blank because blank.
Good.
It's kind of simple. I feel upset because, you're always talking about all the great things you do when you're at Dad's house, and I'm sorry I don't have the money to do all those things. I wish I did. I feel sad. Grandpa died, and he was a great guy, but, he's on Dad's side of the family, and I have a hard time meeting with all those people at the funeral. And I know you're mad because we left the funeral real quick, but I don't know how to handle that. I feel this way, whatever the word may be. It can be all sorts of stuff, but it's a simple little statement. I feel blank because blank. And the because doesn't have to be some long, lengthy, discombobulated story. Keep it simple.
But that could be used for everybody.
Everybody. Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Certainly. Oh, yeah. Certainly. Yeah. All these things which we're talking about, it doesn't matter whether it's kids or adults, but I think sometimes we have an easier time using them with adults than we do with kids. And it's, there's a power thing with kids, We're here and they're there. Mm-hmm. They're not our equals. We can still say, look, you've got a curfew. It's 11 o'clock at night on weekends or 11:30 or whatever you think is appropriate. But there's a way to work that out rather than this is the way it's going to be.
Right.
You know,
Doesn't
and I
doesn't
think a
go very
lot of,
far.
and again, if we've both thrown back and forth, when there's the extra tension involved at the time because a divorce is going through, it makes it harder. And if you screw up, you screw up. Tell them you screw up. That's the repair part, I think, which you were referring to. Yeah, we all screw up. You know, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. You know, we all are. Okay, how can I fix this up? You know,
This is so much information, Dr. Berrens,
oh,
like incredibly useful.
I hope so.
Before we talk about your book, I just want to. I always ask this last question for all of our guests. For someone who is just separated,
Mm-hmm.
whether they left or were left, doesn't matter. What advice would you give them to help them navigate those overwhelming early days?
Well, I, I'm going to circle back and get back around, and that is keep lines of communication open with your kids. Accept what you're feeling, accept what you're going through. I think it's really important that you have another adult or two who you can confide in. I think that's really important. Don't think you can do it all on your own. Um, don't go for big changes real quick. You know, some people, I never cease to be amazed at kids who would tell me something like, you know, mom and dad got divorced 3 months ago and mom or dad is already dating somebody. Take a deep breath. You're going to upset people that way. Kids sometimes. Just take it slow. Take it easy. Listen to your kids. Tell your kids how you're feeling about stuff. I know, this is all new to me. I don't know what's going on. So I realize, guys, that some days I'm in a good mood and some days I come home from work and I'm exhausted and blah, 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 blah happens. I don't always mean for that to happen, but this is a total new ball game for me. And the mom or the dad could be saying that because it can happen to either or both of them. You know, I just think that's in the new, and when it's new, you're really trying to navigate the waters. I mean, this is totally new for you. You've never done this before. Rely on your friends, but not just your friends that are just going to take your side. Find some friends that are going to try. You know, I hope everybody has a friend that's going to be able to kind of see the big picture, shall we say? Because you know, there's my experience with a handful of people that do my friends and that who have been divorced. You know, there are two sides to every story, and sometimes you have to rely on friends who can be honest with you about what the heck's going on.
Yeah,
Does that make any sense to you?
It makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. So tell me about your book that's available online.
Yeah,
Available
well, the
on
book,
Amazon.
just happen to have one here. The book is My Name Is, and it's based on the many kids I saw individually, more than so in groups, who came from divorce, separated, single parent families. The book does consist of 7 short stories. They're all teenagers ranging from, I think, 8th grade through high school, all telling their family situation in a flashback fashion. I would love to tell people that these are happy stories. They aren't. Some of them are somewhat tragic. I had a doctor friend of mine who read the book not long after it was out, and he happened to be a pediatrician, so he worked with kids, and he said I could only read one story a night because they brought back too many memories of too many kids I worked with. Then he went on to say also, this is a great book. I would be using it in my practice if I wasn't retired. But it's designed, you know, so kids do see that there is other people other youngsters, other families that have gone through the same things they've gone through. Some kids who have read the book have told me the kids in your book have it way worse than I had it. You know, so that's another thing to see. I've had people tell me that, you know, I kind of learned a few ideas of how the kids coped, the characters in the book coped, and I've tried a few of those ideas, tried some of those things, and they kind of work or don't work or whatever. For parents that read it, and I'll be honest with you, the vast majority of the books I have sold have been sold to adults. Even though when I wrote it, I'm thinking, this is going for teens. I think a lot of the adults have bought them for teens. A lot of them have told me, I'm buying this for my kid, I'm buying it for my niece, I'm buying it for my grandchild, whatever. But a lot of adults have told me that, you know, in reading the book, they often the light bulb went on to, oh, my kids went through this, I had no idea. Because some kids, and I think, again, getting back to the whole teenage age, and I'm going to give you even more so with boys. They shut the wall. They put the wall, and nobody knows what they're feeling. Nobody knows what they're going through. So in that respect, that has helped. And, the other thing which I'm really excited about, besides the book, is I have turned the book into a play. And the play consists of, it's a divorce group taking place in a high school. It's all the characters from the book. The only difference is I had to make all the characters the same age, so they're all seniors in high school. And one of the stories in the book, I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about the story, but one of the stories is a young lady named Natalie, and let's just say Natalie's a little rough cut. And Natalie, we'll just say she was abused, and we'll leave it at that. But in the end, in the play, it comes out that Natalie reveals to the other members of the divorce group. One of them says something like, "Well, you just seem really disappointed." And Natalie says, "Yeah, there's one person in particular who I'm disappointed in." And the person says, "I bet it's your mother," because she was living with her mother. And Natalie says, "Yes." And then she goes on to say, and I don't have the exact words, but it's like, "Mom never understood what I was going through. A couple months after this happened, Mom kept saying, 'Come on, Nat, get out of it. This happened a long time ago. You should be out with your friends now.' And she said she just never understood the depression I was going through." And that was, again, since we're talking about communication here for our little chat here, is that Mom never communicated with the youngster. Mom was telling the youngster, this Natalie character from the play, how she should feel. "Now you should be done. This guy, he's never going to be around again. Don't worry about it. Things are great. Life is good." And that life wasn't good at that point in time. For the first several years after the incidents occurred, which caused her to get in the divorce group.
Yeah, this sounds wonderful. And I think what I really love about your work is that you're putting something that doesn't get talked about enough and addressed enough, right? About we all just seem to go to lawyers, and that's great. That's one aspect of divorce, but there's so much more. And this is why everyone should go get this book who has tweens or teenagers or young adults.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon, and the theater sounds awesome. I look forward to getting more information about that.
Well, right now it's out there in the hands of several theater people. And a couple of them have gotten back to me already, and I got nothing but thumbs up. Of course, they had a couple suggestions, which were good suggestions, and I'm waiting for it to get back from a couple other theater people. Then we go to step 2 of, okay, how can we get this thing out there?
Yeah.
But for me, it's really exciting. I long to be standing in the wings of a theater someday and watching the kids put this on.
And what a better way for them to learn.
Well, and that's it. And I have two agendas with the play. One is the same as the book. Get kids out to see that they're not alone. Get the kids to see what other kids go through, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, the play was easy to write. The conversations was fun. I wrote the thing in a couple months, and that was with numerous rewrites. But my hidden agenda for the play is to kind of poke the bear, meaning poking the places where kids go to school. Do they have these kind of groups? And my experience here in Cincinnati is that there's probably more of that stuff going on in the private schools where there's a better student counselor psychologist ratio than it is in the public schools. And I'm not beating up on the public school counselors at all, but there's a higher student counselor ratio, and they're very busy with college and credits and all that kind of stuff. And not that they don't want to do these things. I think it's usually a time issue for them. I would love nothing more than have some kid watch this play and the next day their mom calls school and say, "Hey, do we have anything like that going on at my high school, at my kid's high school?"
Yeah.
That's kind of a hidden agenda. We've also thought about putting a kind of a discussion guide. If the play really comes to be, which I'm hoping it does, and we get it out there, I was thinking we'll probably write some sort of a discussion guide to go to the schools after they see it, if they're interested.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is great. You'll have to come back on.
And
let us know how it goes. Let's know how it's going and where it is and how people can see it and stuff.
I'm hoping that within the next month I can take it the next step up the ladder. And there's an organization in Cincinnati called Cincinnati Young People's Theater, and I happen to know a couple people that work there, and that's where we take it next.
Awesome. I look forward to hearing about it, and love to have you back on, of course, because you have a wealth of understanding and knowledge and expertise when we're dealing with our children.
I always enjoy these meetings. They're fun. I look forward to them.
All right. Thanks, Dr. John.
Okay, great. Have a great one.
Thank you for joining today's discussion with our divorce expert. Check out the show notes for more about our guest. If you're finding value in our podcast, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel at Divorce Workshop. Share your questions, comments, or guest suggestions. We'd love to hear from you. For a comprehensive divorce guide, check out our Just Separated workbook on Amazon worldwide. This workbook covers everything from emotions and co-parenting to finances, legal insights, and recovery, a must-have for anyone navigating separation or divorce.